me for my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Welcome to our favorite day of the week. It is Film Friday, ladies and gentlemen. And let me tell you something. I've been watching too many movies on Hulu, too many movies on Amazon Prime, too many movies on Disney Plus. I don't mess with Netflix anymore. I don't want to spend money on something that I'm just going to continue to scroll through. That's why I spend money on the internet. Look, very interesting content coming out of Hulu. I was skeptical at first because you have this new deal where Disney's going to be putting a lot of their content on Hulu Plus, the stuff that's kind of R-rated, a little bit more gritty, a little bit more grimy. They bought all of Fox, their entertainment side of it, not the news and sports side of it. But I come into Hulu thinking to myself, well, Netflix is known for having the better content, the better original stuff. I'm probably just going to use Hulu to watch my favorite TV shows or check up on some older TV shows that I might not be able to find on Netflix or find on the other parts of the internet. So I kind of came in with, all right, I know I'm going to get a little bit more commercials. I know I'm going to get a little bit less of original content, but I'll check out what they have. Their original content has really surprised me so far, and we're going to talk about it on Tuesday when I talk about a new show with Reese Witherspoon that I'm kind of on the fence about. I don't know how I feel. Kerry Washington's been blowing me away in it. It's called Big Little Fires. Very interested in that. Can't wait to talk to you guys about that show that's on right now on Hulu. But I want to talk about this new Pete Davidson movie, a movie that has not a ton of big-name stars. It's got Griffin Gluck in it and Machine Gun Kelly, who are, let's be completely honest here, not household names. You don't know who Griffin Gluck is. Machine Gun Kelly is the one that got in that big fight with Eminem a little while ago over dumb music. Pete Davidson's the reason you're turning this show on, turning this movie on, checking this stuff out. So this movie comes out right in time for this quarantine stuff, and I don't know if it was just perfect timing. I don't know if it was Hulu having some foresight. I don't know what it was, but this movie comes out last Friday on the 13th, and I said to myself, I got to see this. So last weekend, I watched it, and I was impressed. I don't know about you. I did not love the Pete Davidson stand-up on Netflix. I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends really have enjoyed it. They've said that Pete Davidson is their favorite comedian right now. I think that a lot of that type of stuff is cyclical. I think it's whoever has the newest Netflix special or the newest special out on HBO is the preemptive favorite for best comedian right now or the best up-and-coming comedian. I don't really care. He's funny on SNL. I learned about him through SNL. I saw a little bit of his stand-up on YouTube, and I was very much connected to Davidson. Then, of course, he dates Ariana Grande. I was like, that's weird. I always love a little bit of weirdness in my pop culture. So we get this movie about a guy. This is the Rotten Tomatoes synopsis, okay? And we're going to do this podcast like we do all the other ones. For those of you who haven't checked out our content in the past, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown. So we talk about the winners, the MVP, the loser of this movie. We talk about the most rewatchable scene. We talk about the rewatchability of the movie. We talk about why this movie stood out to us. So the synopsis of this movie, according to Rotten Tomatoes, quote, put my quoting voice on, quote, a seemingly bright and mostly innocent 16-year-old Mo attempts to navigate high school under the guidance of his best friend, Zeke, played by Pete Davidson, an unmotivated yet charismatic college dropout. Although Zeke genuinely cares about Mo, things start to go awry when he teaches the non-traditional life lessons of drug dealing, partying, dating, while Mo's well-meaning dad tries to step in and take back the reins on his son's upbringing. All right, so this movie starts with Pete Davidson driving his Mo's sister home. Okay, you get this really cute scene where they're coming out of a movie and Zeke's talking about how he wants to be an actor one day, or he could be an actor one day, and Mo and him do this little back and forth where Mo pretends that his dog just died, and how do you break the news to somebody? And then Zeke, of course, turns around and pretends he's the one that just heard the news that his dog just died. And they go back on this little cute back and forth. And if you've never had a babysitter, I can personally say I've never had a babysitter. So most of my thoughts most of my experiences with babysitting comes from the suburban, white-collar movies and television shows that I saw growing up. Not every babysitter is like Icky Vicky from Fairly Odd Parents. Not every babysitter turns into Zeke from this movie, but I think there's a good in-between. So it's a really cute relationship between Mo, who was about 11 at the time, and Zeke, who is a high school senior. And then slowly you see this relationship blossom between a guy who is in high school and a kid that's just trying to figure out middle school and high school. And maybe some of us have had that relationship in the past. Maybe some of us have had an older senior when you're a freshman in high school, or a senior when you're a freshman in college, or an older brother or sister who kind of shows you the way the world works, who has seen some things, knows some things, been around some people, had some experiences you might not have yet, and they can help guide you through life. Well, what happens when the person who's giving you the advice is a burnout loser? And I think what's really interesting about this movie is it's a real, for somebody who is in college, for somebody who has two younger brothers, and I like to think that I'm a pretty good influence on them, but I'll say this, as the oldest, I never had that person to look up to in the family, how to run your life. So I was always going off of either my friends who had brothers and sisters who were a little bit older, or in college juniors and seniors, trying to kind of figure out how this world works as time goes on. And then slowly but surely, you kind of figure it out on your own. You kind of blaze your own path. But the problem for Mo is Zeke never leaves the town. He's always around. So you got Mo and Zeke hanging out through the formative years of Mo's life, through middle school, all the way up to junior year of high school. And what is Mo's life going to be like after he graduates high school? Does he go down the same path Zeke does? Being a guy who's working at a rent-a-center, not really having much of a future, really only hanging out with his friends, Nick, and I want to say he had another friend too, pretty much hanging out with Machine Gun Kelly, who kind of is a loser too. Where does Mo go from here? Does he follow his sister's path, who went to college, is going to go to law school, dating a guy who's successful, going to get married to him? Does he look at that path and say, what do I do? And then, of course, you got to think about Ruben and Holly. Or I'm sorry, Ruben, who's played by John Sire. You might remember him from 2.5 Men. Holly's played by Sydney Sweeney, who you might remember from Euphoria. I'm pretty sure she was in that, playing Holly, who is Zeke's girlfriend at the time, younger. She graduated a year or two ahead of Zeke in high school, or a year or two ahead of Mo in high school, who isn't really in love with the way Zeke's life is going. You know, she's the girlfriend who's kind of Zeke is attractive. Pete Davidson's a cute guy. But she doesn't want to be dating a loser her entire life. This is kind of something, a one-off. This is a fling. We don't really know where this is going to go. We kind of know where it's not going to go. This doesn't look like a long-term thing for Zeke. But this is the synopsis of the movie, right? This is where this movie's going. And Zeke needs to find out where his priorities lie. Is he just doing the same thing, the same routine to impress Mo? Is his entire self-worth based on if Mo thinks that he's a cool guy? Does Mo want to follow in the same footsteps as Zeke? Mo, from all accounts, according to his parents in this movie, bright kid. Could go to college, could get some scholarships. But if he keeps living the life that Zeke has set out for him, if he keeps following that blueprint, he's going to fall apart. So, if you haven't seen this movie yet, it's streaming on Hulu. I'm very impressed by Hulu's content, like I mentioned earlier. This is a surprise to me. In the content game, I always ranked them this way. I said HBO, far and away the leader. That they hit more home runs, they hit a better average on good shows, from dumb stoner comedies to smart, sophisticated shows. We were talking about The Sopranos on Twitter earlier today, me and a guy that I know. We were saying that Sopranos walked, so Game of Thrones and The Wire and Curb could run, could sprint. They are the king, I think, of content, quality content. It's worth every cent that you spend on HBO. Then you think about the Netflixes of the world, who put out a lot of fluff, a lot of misses, not a ton of dunks, not a ton of home runs, but they hit just enough that you want to stick around. They're a good enough three-hole hitter that you're going to continue to put them in your lineup, that you're not going to cut the cord on them. I personally did. I didn't want to sift through garbage, Netflix originals that really didn't have anything for me, TV shows that I don't really care that much about, original content that, again, not really for me, the original TV shows. So I moved on from them, but I get it why people don't. I get it why you continue to tune in to Netflix. They got good stand-up specials. They've got Friends. It makes sense. I get it. Then you look at cable TV, the AMCs, the FXXs, which is now on Hulu. All of that, I get it. It's cable. You're going to get good stuff. Network television, to me, has been bad for the last decade. But, hey, who am I to judge? So that's really where the tier system ranks for me. So when Hulu comes in and has a movie like this, to me, an absolute hit, it had everything I want, which we're going to get to in a second, I was surprised. And if they continue on this trend, I am going to continue to be an avid watcher of Hulu. The ads, some people have said, well, I can't watch TV with ads when Netflix is available and I can just binge an entire show with no breaks. Well, I raise this question to you. How often are you on your phone when you're on Netflix? How often are you having to pause and rewind a scene in a movie? Because, let's be honest, you didn't catch the entire thing. I would say, for the majority of us, there's a couple times that you stop and you have to rewatch things. And that's natural, and I'm not sitting here judging anybody. For me, Hulu works because the ad breaks are perfect for me to check Twitter, check my messages. If somebody sends me an email, I can kind of read the email, maybe not respond, but I can read the email and know what's happening in between the segments of the commercial. So it works for me. So this is a big shout out to Hulu. This isn't a sponsored content or anything like that, but I just wanted to say that if you aren't all the way in, if you have any questions or stipulations of how it works, I'm giving my sign of approval. I thought it was really good. All right, let's talk about the winners and losers of this movie. Winner, Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson's performance in this movie shocked me. I was very surprised of how good he was. Not because I didn't think he was a good actor, not because I didn't think he was an incredible comedian, but when you look at the guys in that class, when you look at the guys who are in his kind of category, his group, that type of comedy that he does, kind of raunchy, kind of stoner, kind of frat guy type of comedy, he stands alone in this and you can see that it's worked on SNL. Maybe he's not in every skit. Maybe the skits that he's in, you're not a big fan of. But you can tell that when a movie star comes around, when a great actor comes around, SNL, I think that Pete learned some things. Because there's some scenes in this movie where he's really good. There's some touching scenes in this movie, which we're going to get to when we talk about the rewatchability of it. There's some scenes in this movie where he stands out as a guy who's legit. He's a legit actor in this movie, and he is why I'm putting him as the biggest winner. The loser of this movie, wasn't totally impressed by Moe's friend John, played by Thomas Barcita. Wasn't really impressed by him. Machine Gun Kelly had one really good line in this movie. I thought his acting was kind of so-so. I thought that if this is going to be something that Hulu's going to do is sneak in musical artists, try to get them maybe a little bit more foot in the game. Maybe you say, oh, I'm not really a big Pete Davidson fan. I don't really know who Griffin Gluck is. I don't really want to watch this movie. Oh, I'm a big Machine Gun Kelly fan. Oh, he's in it. Let me check this out. I don't think that there's a ton of those people. I don't think that that's a really big market. But if you say, oh, I have Meghan Trainor in this movie, or, oh, Katy Perry makes an appearance in this movie, maybe more people tune into it. I don't know. His performance in this movie, I'm giving that an L. I'm saying he's a loser. I will say this, though. There's a line in this movie where he pulls Moe aside. Nick, played by Machine Gun Kelly, pulls Moe aside and is talking about his new girlfriend, Ora Lawrence, known as Stephanie in this movie. Sophie in this movie. So Moe's taking Sophie on a date. They take him back to this Zeke's crib. Nick's there. They're having a little bit of a party. Nick pulls Moe aside and is like, I'm not one to judge. She looks kind of young. She looks like she's about 16, 17. Mo has to remind him, hey, buddy, I know you've been hanging out with me the last 5 years. I'm 16, too. And there's this really good scene there. So, Machine Gun Kelly, I'm giving you an L for this one. Wasn't super impressed by the acting performance. He fits in this movie, but again, not where I'd expect him to be. I think anybody really could play the role of Nick in this movie. Another winner, Griffin Gluck. The rest of his IMDb page, not a ton on there. There's a couple things I had seen. I recognized him pretty quickly. He played Batman. He was in Batman and Robin as a voice character. He was in The Worst Year of My Life. Not a ton of other stuff. I remember him from Just Go With It. He's in that. Again, not a ton of stuff that he's really been in, but I recognized him most from playing Sam from American Vandal, who you might remember in the Netflix show. He is a very solid actor. I give him an A+ for this role. I thought he did a really good job. All right, let's talk about the rewatchability, and then I'll let you guys go. Rewatchability of this movie, yeah, 100%. This is a movie that when I go back, when we finally get out of quarantine, when we're finally done, when we can go back and be in public and watch movies again, this is a movie I'm 100% showing somebody on the next friend date I'm on, the next date I'm on, when we're having a night in. This is a movie that I'm bringing somebody in to make them watch with me because it's a funny movie. I think that if you're in the ages of 18 to 25, 18 to 30, and you've watched Pete Davidson on SNL, you maybe have seen some of his stand-up, this is the same but different. I don't know how to really describe it for you, but it's a different Pete Davidson. It is a unique, authentic, humanized version of Pete. And I don't know if you have ever dealt with being lost, maybe a ship without a rudder. You kind of don't know where you're going in your life. I think a lot of young people today, I know me, I've been in that position before, but I think a lot of young people today are in that position of really not knowing where they want to go. I talk to my friends who are all around my age. Lot of, well, I don't know what I'm going to do after college. Well, I don't know what I want to major in. Well, I don't really know what my next move is. I've been lucky enough to think and always had a little bit of a plan to go ahead. But a lot of people I know don't have that plan, don't have that way of mapping out their life. A lot of people just go with the flow. Zeke is the go with the flow guy. Most family doesn't want him to be the go with the flow guy. The go with the flow guy is fun at parties. The go with the flow guy is fun to hang out with. The go with the flow guy hits you up on a Saturday night and says, hey, we're going out. You want to come? The Moes of the world want to have a plan. The Moes of the world want to figure out where the next step is. And that's why I think this movie is so rewatchable. That no matter if you've seen it once, if you've seen it 100 times, it's going to be a movie that's going to remind you that it's okay not to have a plan, but you need to have some sort of ambition. It's cool to be the person who doesn't have everything mapped out, but you need to know where you want to go. You don't need a map to get there, but you need to get there. That's going to do it for the podcast. Big Adolescence. On Rotten Tomatoes, the score was 87% on the Rotten Tomato meter. I want to say audiences gave it a 90. Audience gave it a 84. I would give it about the same. I would say it's about a 90, 91, an A+ movie. I loved it. That's a movie that I strongly suggest. Hulu is a streaming site that I strongly suggest that you check out because it's good, especially while we're all in quarantine. While we're all in quarantine, you need to check something out. And they've got a lot of really good shows. I'm going to be talking about Big Little Fire probably on Tuesday, the new show with Reese Witherspoon. I've kind of got into it. Kerry Washington's really blowing me away. I was really impressed by her performance. So check that out on Tuesday. A lot of good content that came out this week. We talked about the best players of the 2010s. I don't know. A lot of you are kind of craving for some sports content. I know a lot of people are just kind of hanging out, rewatching some stuff. There's a grab bag of sports news. That podcast is out now as well. It's kind of a grab bag of what you can expect from what's happening in the sports world, where we're going to go from here. Alexander Hayes came on the podcast on Wednesday to talk to us. That podcast is out as well. You can go check that out, giving us kind of a blueprint of what we can expect from this coronavirus going forward. So You want to check that out. You want to check all the other content out. It's all on our podcast page. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. Just search the name Andrew Zimmel, and you're there. We're right there for you. So as we sit, as we stand, as we walk around our small apartments and walk our dogs with really nobody else around, I say please continue to wash your hands. Please continue to social distance yourself. Please continue to have some sort of normalcy in your life. I know a lot of people are going stir mad. I'm kind of going crazy too, but I will be with you the entire time on this podcast. So thanks for checking us out. I will talk to you again next week.